Yo, what's going on, everyone? It's Brian and Jim here from DrinkABeerandPlayAGame, and today we are checking out...
Do it, Bri. Say it, Bri.
Fucking Jim makes me do these goddamn weird games. Kiduo Butoden Gundam. It's the goddamn game with robots fighting each other. It's the Japanese exclusive, but we're checking it out for the Super NES.
Released in 1994, this was developed by Pandora Box, and it is a Japanese exclusive for the Super Famicom. So basically, this is one of the very few games based on the Mobile Fighter G Gundam series that is basically a spin-off of the overall Mobile Suit Gundam Maxiverse. Like, the series is huge, it's been around for fucking ever, there have been a ton of games based on it, and actually, there's a pretty good fighting game based on Gundam Wing on the Super Famicom, which we're not looking at, because I hate you, Brian. And
yeah, Jim, it's very interesting there's only 2 games made for this. I wonder why.
But Brian... So the reason we're looking at this one is this happens to be one of my favorite versions of Gundam, so not a lot of games for it, for that series, and it's either this or a game for a Japanese PS2. This was easier to mod, so we're playing this one. Anyway, let's take a look at it.
The graphics. As we always say, we compare the games we're reviewing to their contemporaries on the same system or similar systems. Now, this is the Super Famicom, as Jim mentioned. That's essentially equivalent to the Super NES. So, in our eyes, it's up for grabs as far as what we're comparing it to. And we gotta be honest. While some of the robots look decent, and the backgrounds might have some interesting depth to them, there's still a general blurriness and just... I don't know how to describe it. A lot of games look a lot better. There's better shading on similar fighting models, shadows can look better, and there can be a little bit more adaptive lighting in the backgrounds. This one was just kind of bare bones in that experience. Like I said, we do appreciate the sprites and some of the animations that are done, and considering the fact that there's not a ton of different fighters, they all should have been fighting a little bit more unique and offering more unique animations. It's not as flashy as it should have been, and that's really where our biggest disappointment comes in. Once again, this is not to say that this game looks terrible, because it still looks pretty decent, but when it comes to score, I gave it a 6, Jim gave it a 5. I appreciated the amount of depth they did go on the robots, but as I said, since you are limiting the number of robots you can choose from, it's a little disappointing. So for that reason alone, I'm going to add 1 beer.
Alright, the sound. It's okay. So, it's been a long time since I watched the series, so I can't exactly remember the music from the series, so I couldn't tell you whether or not they ripped off these tracks from the actual show or not. Maybe I could have watched it a little bit before the review, but hey, what are you going to do? So I'm going to judge it on face value. And the compositions for the music aren't bad. They're fine, they just seem a little simplistic. It's not something you're really going to remember after a while. It doesn't take away from the game, but it doesn't necessarily add, but it's better than nothing. So, the music, it's fine. There's a little bit of digitized voice work, mainly when you're calling out some of the more special moves for the characters. Not a lot of it there, but again, what you get, it's okay. The attacks, they don't, again, like the graphics, they don't have the big, over-the-top kind of boom that you would expect from 2 giant robots fighting each other. Overall, it's a perfectly serviceable, whole sound package, but that's all it is. It's just average, really. But I thought it was a little bit better than that, so he gave it a 6, and I gave it a 5. And when it comes to beers, I'm gonna add 1 beer for the okay-ish soundtrack.
The control. Like most fighters at the time, the layout is what you've come to expect. You have a light punch, light kick, heavy kick. Where this game is unique, and one of the things I actually really like about control, the bumpers allow you to run forward or run backwards, and that's something that felt fairly unique. I'm sure we'll touch on it in Originality, but as far as the control mechanic, I can't remember any fighting game at the time that really had that, so that was a welcome addition in my eyes. Everything else is as standard, you jump using the D-pad, and you can block using the D-pad, which you guys know I really hate, so I can never
love it.
Oh, of course Jim likes it, but he likes inferior things.
Alright, I got off easy with that one. I thought you were going to say way worse. So, go on.
So this is just one of the areas where Jim and I disagree a little bit. In my eyes, the actions did feel a bit sluggish. Now, maybe that was them trying to emulate the actual robots and the fact that they're large and they move a little bit slower. I'm not really sure. I found the most annoying thing to be, if you were a character that was using a weapon like the dragon and you're using the staff, it seemed to just take way too long of a delay to actually use that weapon. Whereas if you're, I think the name is Hackster or whatever it is, the American robot, if you're just punching, it always seemed a little faster. Similar to the graphics, I'm not saying the control is bad. In fact, it is still well above average, and if you're used to any other fighter at a time, you're going to have no problem picking this up and playing. The special moves, for the most part, are done in the similar fashion of downright punch or quarter moon punch or kick. So
It's Street Fighter.
yeah, it's fairly easy. Any fighting game at a time, you're gonna know how to do at least a couple of them before you have to look up how to do the super moves. So with all that being said, I gave it a 7, Jim gave it an 8. When it comes to beer, I'm just gonna add 1 because once again, it should have felt a little more fluid to me.
Alright, the gameplay. Yeah, this is about as basic as you can get. So, like we said in the control, this is just basically Street Fighter 2 with a coat of Gundam paint on it. I'll start first with the actual fighting engine, and it's fine. Like we said, it's a slower, somewhat clunkier Street Fighter 2. The kind of big problem that you're going to run into is it's just so bare bones. Every character maybe has 5 to 6 moves, and there's no true combo system in the game, which is kind of a shame. You can't really string that much stuff together. Now, it can keep it from getting ridiculous, but it also kind of takes away some of the more heavy-duty stuff that you'll get with fighting games. You get a couple different game modes. You get the story mode, which is one-round fights, where in between the fight, you get the story, spelled out to you in cutscenes. It's all in Japanese, so unless you know the story from the anime, you're not going to know what's going on. There's a versus battle, which is, it's versus mode. There's championship battle, in which you pick a Gundam, you fly around the world on a world map, and you do best 2 out of 3 fights until you fight everyone. Huh, that sounds a bit familiar. And then you have the team battle options, which you set teams, you fight each other, blah 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 blah. Honestly, it's kind of a really bare bones fighter. It's not special in any way, and kind of in a way, unless you're a fan of G Gundam, there's almost no reason to play it if you have better fighters. But, that being said, on its own, it's not a bad fighting game either. There's way worse on the Super Nintendo. So, functionally, it's fine, it's just nothing special, it's completely average, so we gave it average scores of 5s. And when it comes to beer, I'm gonna add 2 beers. One for being a pretty faithful adaptation of the anime, and one for being an extremely faithful adaptation of Street Fighter 2. Holy crap.
The originality. Well, this is one area where this game really shits the bed. As Jim said, you basically have a Street Fighter 2 clone just with robots and less characters and less originality. And this game, it's not even the first in the Gundam series. It's not even the first fighting game in the Gundam series. The only originality this game really offers is the fact that this is the first game for the G Gundam spin-off from the main series. As we said though, since there already are other Gundam games, since there already are a million fighting games, and especially since it takes direct inspiration from Street Fighter 2, if they had just thrown in 1 or 2 other unique things about this game, we could have given it a higher score. It's lucky it's getting a 2, quite honestly. And as far as beer, I'm just going to add 2 because, dear God, maybe this is a game that just shouldn't have been made. And you know what? The other beer is for me. Having to review this goddamn game because Jim can't pick goddamn good games. God damn it.
But Brian, expanding your horizons.
I don't need my horizons expanded.
Alright, the replayability. Well, it's got a versus mode, so automatically gets to 5. You have the 5 characters that you can start out with in the story mode, so you can kind of do that even though it's the same thing basically every time. And then you have the championship and the team battle modes, which, you can make your own fun with. What can I say? It gives you a lot of options. You have different characters to learn the styles of. It's just so bare bones again. It doesn't do anything to be very special, but at least gives you things to do. So Brian gave it a 6, I gave it a 7. And when it comes to beer, I'll just give it 1 beer for all the game modes. Why not?
Overall, well, this is going to sound like a broken record because Jim already hit this home with you guys, but there's nothing really special about this game. If you're really in the mood for a fighter, you're going to have a ton of other options to go to. And let's not face the fact that if you're listening to this, the chances are you probably don't have a Super Famicom, so you're going to be emulating. And it's...
Right.
What?
Being able to play Super Famicom games is actually one of the easier mods that you can do on any system. You just kind of get some pliers and you rip out the little tabbies on the inside of your Super NES and you're good to go.
So anyway, you could do that, or you could take those pliers, shove them in your eyes if you want to go through all that and just goddamn emulate it. Either one's an option. But this game, it's not even impressive for the fact that if you are a huge Gundam fan, this game might actually let you down. So if you're a hardcore fan, maybe play some of the main Gundam series and don't watch the spin-off like Jim did and be a goddamn weirdo.
But Bri, it was something good to come home to when it was on Toonami.
I just don't know what you did in your childhood, Jim. I just don't know.
A lot of stuff you don't want to know.
Goddamn right about that. So, Jim said it for gameplay, and I'm going to repeat it. For such an average game, we gave the average scores of 5s. It's not terrible, it controls fairly well, but it just is going to be so forgettable. And when we combined all of our scores together, it rounds out to a 5.7. The only reason it really rounds up this high for us is the fact that on a technical level, there's nothing really that wrong with it. It's just boring, unoriginal, and doesn't offer much depth, even with all the game modes.
Yeah, I mean, I picked this game because I love this series, but let's be honest, if it isn't for me liking this series, there'd be no reason for me to have gotten it or even cared about it or have really ever played it. Like I said, if you like G Gundam, go get it. It's cheap. If you don't like G Gundam, yeah, might as well stay away.
Oh man, I wish I lived in that alternate universe where you didn't watch this goddamn series and I didn't have to waste my time playing this game.
Right. You're welcome. You're welcome for this experience.
When it comes to beer pairing, I'm going to go with Sapporo. This is one of the more familiar Japanese beers here in the state, and it's actually modeled after the American lager. It's not great, it's mass-produced, it's kind of like the Japanese equivalent to a Bud Light or a Miller Lite. And honestly, for such a random game like this, I might as well give you a beer that you might not have tried. But remember to drink your beers and play your games responsibly.
As always, guys, thanks for checking out this video, and if you enjoyed it, make sure you give us a thumbs up, leave some comments, or better yet, why not subscribe? Till next time, guys, cheers.